Let's jump in and get started with our first session. So our first topic is where to begin, your digital workplace transformation journey, presented by Brett Calden, CEO of Workgrid. It's great to have you with us, Brett, and now I'll hand it over to you.
All right, great. Thanks, Ted. Give me a moment to share my screen. Well, thanks, everybody. Welcome. I appreciate you joining us today. I'm really looking forward to some good conversations. We want to talk a little bit today about accelerating your digital workplace strategy. So I think there was a lot of talk earlier around integrations being a very, very big topic here, but how do you kind of move beyond sort of what the standard intranet and capabilities are into leveraging more of the cutting edge technologies and sort of bringing things together across the enterprise. So Workgrid, this is really what we're about. We want to make work simpler, more efficient, engaging for employees. I mean, our real tenet is everybody has purpose, passion, potential, and we'll leverage technology to make sure that employees are making the most of that. We provide what we call an intelligent employee experience platform, very open and extensible, but really about aggregating and amplifying, if you will, the existing and current implementations of intranets. So we like to think of ourselves as a synergy with intranets that provide and bring some more of the modern technologies, including integrations and things to the enterprise. So we'll talk about today. I know we only got 15 minutes, so we're going to be quick. We'll talk about how you put the employee experience first now when you talk about your digital workplace strategy. And obviously the importance of that as things have sort of escalated in the need for strength in the digital workplace. How do you get started? How do you go about starting to make those changes and modernizing your digital workplace? And things you need to think about as you do it, but also setting yourself up to be a little bit more future-proof with your platform and what you're providing your employees so you can continuously improve. And then we'll share a couple examples of some innovation along those lines that we've seen in the space. So that said, it is critical, I think there's probably most people are certainly along the lines of how important it is that you take the employee experience at the center of whatever you do for your strategy. Along those lines, you're looking at a very different change, I think, in ownership as well. That experience as it relates to the employee is across many silos in the organization. So how do you really kind of flip it upside down, look at the needs of the employee, and then be able to incrementally deliver, even if it's small? And where do you start? Right? How do you get the first value quick and build upon that? So getting ownership right, if you kind of look across the organizations, the employee experience sits in many silos. You can see HR, a massive component of that, as well as the comms aspect. IT has a bunch of touch points with employees, and they're in systems that span the enterprise in very different ways. And all those systems that you have out there that were implemented, and I think we were talking about some of this, like sort of system fatigue and too many tools and those type of things. A lot of those are sort of built to support back-end processes or very strong alignment to line of business or departmental. But when they get layered onto the employee, requires a lot of institutional knowledge. And I think Dennis from Philips was talking about the training that's involved, especially when you account for digital IQ over the various types of employees and personas that you have, how difficult that becomes. So we like to think of it in terms of this. The next generation of how you're going to be delivering these capabilities is really about an experience layer and taking a holistic approach that makes things contextual, personalized, but also unified from an experience perspective. We talked about understanding employees. Yeah, so really talking about, and I think I saw some of the comments over there where people talk about an approach on design thinking and doing some various things that really get to the heart of what those moments that matter to employees are. And there's various approaches you want to take, whether that's creating employee personas, mapping those journeys out, and then conducting user studies and user journeys. And when you do this, you want to really think broadly about the employee experience. Really touching on all those things from the moment you even recruit an employee to, when you give them that first offer, those are the touch points that start to establish that relationship with the employee from a digital perspective. And they carry that through them, throughout their career. So identifying those moments that matter are really important. And you want to think broadly, but act locally, I guess, is one way to look at it. Again, starting small and finding those moments to choose and continuing to build on that experience as you go forward. Because, when you take the emotional IQ from an employee into the experience piece of this and what you're trying to provide, it's very diverse by where an employee sits, right down to what their role is, even what they're feeling. I think we've seen a lot of that, certainly as we've gone through the last few months, how much that has been a struggle to play into, really brings more of that wellness and those type of things and understanding people into the digital experience. So where to start? You can page forward one more. This is don't boil the ocean. This is what I was talking about, starting small with incremental delivery. We've seen a lot of, certainly our customers, even ourselves, as we implement these touch points, even the small things that are high volume, but have high emotion or are struggling pain point. If you can bring those forward, we've seen examples of even things like being able to view pay slips, being able to submit time off type requests outside of that source system, which is typically difficult to navigate in and requires some institutional knowledge, but making it easy and in a place that's very simple for the employee. And I can't overstress as you go through the strategy to build these out based on the employee input is the feedback, and that needs to be continuous. So really having a place where there's a continuous feedback loop to listen to your employees when they're feeling those things in the moment, that will allow you to kind of identify and build what I would consider a backlog to continually improve. So when you architect for this success, it goes back to a little bit I was saying, is you really want to think broadly about the employee experience from that layer perspective, and something that allows you to actually plug and play, bring those smaller experiences forward in a meaningful way for the employee. And we're not talking about outcome-driven design because it's really about intent. And I think it might have been Neil from Glencore was talking about that as far as no training, really designing it that it's very intuitive and you can, there's no training necessary to actually transact. And the future-proof piece is, I think Frank alluded to a little earlier, was you're going to continue to plug and play systems. And it's only going to get a little more complicated because the expansion of cloud capabilities and the ability to now buy pointed solutions in very micro application pieces. So you're going to have a larger topography of systems, and that's going to continue to progress. So being able to plug and play those without impacting the user experience is important. Yep, next slide. So when I talk about digital experience there, this is really what it looks like. Your employees sit above the fold, and this is typical across most enterprises. You're interacting with all of these systems. And with that comes a lot of one institutional knowledge or link farming and those types of things. For a lot of the things employees do, they might use 2 or 3% of one of these systems. They're really engineered for the back-end users. What we're trying to do is to look for an experience that you can pull out those things, make them unified, and abstract sort of all of that institutional knowledge to get things done in the enterprise. Yeah, and this some examples of that. You'll see various things coming from each one of these systems across the enterprise, but they're all coming in different formats. Whether it could be email, it could be other. So really unifying that to the really aggregated experience for the employee and bringing things together in one spot has a lot of value. And you can have your cake and eat it too. It's kind of the best world, both worlds. So that you want the great experience, and the employees certainly do, but you already have great systems. So it's not the intent to sort of replace these great systems. It's the intent to actually make a better experience for the employee on top of these systems. And here's an example of what that kind of looks like. If you see from the employee's view, it's a very unified, easy, intuitive type implementation, but it's also pulling from in this example, 6 different systems. And in this case, as sort of you kind of elevate that employee experience up digitally, your employees don't have to know that it's either a Workday or an Oracle system, right? They just know they want to take time off. Which plays into, really trying to leverage a place where you have the control of the design and how you design and how you innovate as well. This is an example of a typical employee taking a day off. And when you step back and look at it, to accomplish that, you might have to hit 4 or 5 different systems, whether you're going to put your time into Workday, communicate in Slack, set your out of office, and if you're in project management systems or in billable systems of finance, those are other systems that come into play just from the nature of taking the day off. But the intent from the employee's perspective is, I just want to take a day off. So you want to design in ways that are really effective for the employee. So if you look at this application here, you're putting your time in, everything's based on intent and things you need to do. The orchestration of all those across 4 systems is done in the background. It kind of removes that noise from the employee's perspective. and be able to orchestrate things in a way that really just the intent of what the desired outcome is. And then get the foundation right. And this is the critical piece of how you want to be building on what's an extensible platform, and giving you the ability, again, this goes to the innovation and the needs specific. And a lot of companies have different pain points, different needs, but giving them the ability to actually innovate and deploy what meets their pain points on a platform that you can grow on. And modernizing legacy systems, what you see is, as we go through this, there's a lot of systems that are there that are doing exactly what's needed from the back end perspective. They're really supporting the line of businesses and those type of things for the core functions. They just don't have the optimal UI. So not having to overinvest in kind of rebuilding the whole barn when you can put a coat of paint on it and still leverage the value you've invested in your technology, but elevate the employee experience up. All right, so just a couple quick examples. So now you can page ahead in this one. Starting with a use case, this goes down to, where do you start, where do you begin? Here's an example of a bank we were working with that started with onboarding, as they were really trying to bring communications and things front and center to employees as they started their journey as a hire. So, they brought in, really touch points early, and then also really integrate into systems and automate certain things, whether it be ordering a computer and those type of things. So what they did is, if you see this process and onboarding touches many systems, it really doesn't look that way to the employee. It becomes more of a seamless experience for them with all their tasks in one place. And I'll skip through this just a little bit, but this is really the reality of it. And again, going to all of the different systems and the ownership of the tasks. You can page forward one more. But it's really about being employee-centric. So when you can get, even though the ownership and the system pieces are all over the place from the enterprise perspective, if you can unify that into a singular list for the employee, it makes it a much better experience. To start with high volume, this was an interesting example from a customer telecom company that was really struggling with a back-end system that was not the optimal experience, where they redesigned it in an employee experience layer fashion to make things easier and abstract away the complexity of the source system. And also to inherit some mobile capabilities that those legacy systems just didn't have. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up and thank you for your time.